Hello, everyone, and welcome to this live SIGS broadcast. We don't do these often, but we are here to welcome Bunker Hill and congratulate them on the TSX.V Up-Listing. So, guys, tell me about what you're excited for here in the coming months, and how excited you are for this.
Well, no, thanks, and it's great to be here in this remarkable venue with the TSX Ventures Exchange. I mean, we have worked as a team, along with our shareholders, all the stakeholders involved, for a long time to get to this point, to be on this exchange. And it's very exciting, but also very humbling. We join an exchange that's got a lot of great names. Here in Toronto, a lot of the world's largest, most successful mining companies walk these streets. They're going to be listed on this and similar exchanges. So for us, little bunker with big ambitions, to join them is quite a moment, actually. And there's a lot of cynicism out there in the industry, understandably. Cynicism out there in the markets, but to be working with a team of people on a project like this and to have got over this milestone is really worth celebrating. So I'm very, very pleased to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been quite a journey up to this point. This is a significant milestone for us. Certainly very proud of the team that has worked so hard to get us to this point. And speaking of that, the team is hard at work back at Bunker Hill in Kellogg, Idaho. And the project, what I can say is going very, very well. We've taken full advantage of the summer construction season. The project is moving along, primarily focused on upgrading and expanding the portal and the underground access to the mine. That project will be wrapping up here in the next few weeks. Happy to report that from a full project perspective, certainly we are on track, on budget at this point. And the team is delivering well, and activity is really ramping up, and it's certainly exciting to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and while we're on it, just think about it. This time next year, we'll be looking at a restart of production at Bunker Hill, a mine that started production 130 years ago, and we'll be doing that in over a period of time where the United States will elect either a new president or re-elect the current president. And in so doing, we're going to put 250 new jobs into an area that lost that when the mine shut in 1981. And that's just 250 current jobs. But if you add the typical 5-to-1 ratio of indirect employment that is created as a result of that, that's a really significant impact. And when go back to that cynicism point, when people look outside into the industry, they understandably criticize bad practice. And that's fine. Bad practice should be criticized and stamped out wherever it's found. But they often forget about the extraordinary positive impact that mining has on communities such as Kellogg at Silver Valley, Idaho, or wherever it is. And the fact that we're able to do that and listed on this exchange, bringing new supporters into that story at a time when people are asking a lot of money is a really big deal.
And Sam, tell us a little bit about what investors should be excited for and what you think they're missing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there is a lot to be excited about Bunker Hill, because if you go right back to the beginning, and what we said from the very beginning is that what we're doing right now at Bunker Hill is a low capex, rapid restart of an asset that has enormous upside potential. So when you look at Bunker Hill and when we talk about the project that we're building right now, that's the first step. That is a unique approach to building a mining company, starting with a modest capex, quick return to a free cash flow position, and then using that free cash flow to unlock the ultimate upside value potential that the Bunker Hill mine has to offer. And that value potential is significant. I mean, we're talking about a mine that operated for over 100 years and was a significant producer of base metals and silver. And certainly as we move from the first phase, which is restarting the mine, getting back into a free cash flow position, what excites me the most is what comes next, and unlocking all of that upside potential at Bunker Hill.
Yeah, and that, Sam, well put, is that this staged approach we think is much more efficient for a mine like ours than for instance, raising a vast amount of capital to create a very large NPV and then raising even more capital to go in. In our view, getting the mine up and running and then unlocking it in stages where the first phase delivers a very high internal rate of return, generates the cash flow to do that unlocking, is not just a measure of our view of the capital markets, because money is expensive and tight, but it's just good business. And so Sam's approach, and I would remember you arriving at the mine site and saying, well, there's no doubt about the metal in the ground. The challenge is, could we resolve some of the above ground issues related to the Environmental Protection Agency discussions, which were resolved very quickly and successfully by Sam and his team, and could we bring the capital markets into the story? Both of those things require quite a lot of work. And now we have the team. Sam's plan is an exceedingly good one. And the combination of Sam, his team, and that plan is going to deliver a great outcome for the valley and for shareholders.
It sounds like wonderful news for investors.
I think it is.
About the metal in the ground. So what do you think is coming up with the commodities markets? How do you think the demand is going to be for zinc, silver? I'm sure investors would love to know your opinions on that.
Well, I'll do the sort of general thing and then hand over to Sam, who'll closer to the sort of detail. But the general reality is that as the world grows in terms of its population and industrializes and becomes more urban, all of which has been going on for centuries, it needs more metal. But you have that demand driver. Then in addition to that, you then have a couple of other immediate issues that are impacting upon that demand position. Supply is a different thing. One of which is the wish to transform the world's energy supply away from fossil fuels and into more sustainable electric sort of battery solutions. Well, that's creating new demand for metals, which includes zinc, which includes silver, and includes lead. None of those things are known, obviously, as battery metals, but all contribute to both infrastructure and energy transformation. Then in addition to that, you've now got this geopolitical competition between China primarily and the West, which has the potential to split the market in half. So up to very recently, the consumers of, say, zinc didn't really mind where the metal came. In the future, that may be different. And so what we find ourselves being, and that's from the demand side, a lot of demand and so on. On the supply side, where we contribute a small part to the supply solution, you're going to find that countries such as the United States are going to value at a premium secure supply of metals such as ours, zinc, silver, and they're going to value at a premium that supply, particularly if it generates jobs, and it's done in a way that is environmentally sound. So I've deliberately run around the general sense of your question to say that actually I think the long-term prognosis for the market for all metals is positive. But on the specifics of zinc, lead, and silver, perhaps I'll hand over to Sam for some of his thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think specifically about the lead, zinc, and silver, I think that, and we talk about that battery metal component, and we talk about, Richard, you mentioned that lead and silver or lead and zinc are not traditionally thought of as battery metals. But when I look at the low carbon energy transition and you think about the battery storage capacity that the world is going to need to make that transition, I think that it's going to take all battery storage technologies. And certainly with lead, obviously, you have a very proven battery technology. It has an advantage of being infinitely recyclable, ideal for fixed infrastructure. And then there's some really interesting, developments in zinc battery technology as well, that's showing that zinc batteries potentially have the capability that's on par with some of the best and highest energy density battery technologies that are coming to the market. So I think that from the supply side is that ultimately we may find that zinc and lead are just as important in that battery space as lithium, cobalt, some of the other more traditional battery metals. From a supply side and Bunker specifically, what we have at Bunker Hill is we have an asset that can certainly grow into being a significant domestic producer of lead, zinc, and silver. If you look at the market right now, when Bunker Hill comes into production, it will be around 10% of U.S. domestic zinc production in the lower 48 states. And that's a significant contributor. And the other thing that is interesting about Bunker Hill is that partnered with with Teck just across the border in Trail, British Columbia, not only do you have a mine that's a domestic producer, but the refining capability to bring that product to market all in the North American space is quite unique.
Yeah, and actually, I know that in terms of the actual generation of electricity with solar and wind, I know silver plays a big role in that, and zinc as well. Absolutely, something like 10 to 20% for silver in terms of the total peak cells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and silver is a key component of the Bunker Hill story. Obviously, as we're starting the mine, we're more zinc dominant from a revenue perspective, but certainly when you look at silver, not only the potential that silver has in the deposit, but also the economic leverage that silver represents in our business. The interest in silver is significant, and the importance of silver is very significant. I'm glad you brought that up because, from our perspective, Bunker Hill is a multi-metal mining operation. But it's helpful to remember that there was 165 million ounces of silver produced out of Bunker Hill, which makes it the third largest silver producer in the Silver Valley. And we see that the focus on transitioning that revenue mix to a more silver dominant revenue stream over time makes a compelling case for the economic return of the mine. And we'll certainly be looking to focus on that and bring more silver into the mine plan as we expand the mine.
And one thing I also sort of say, Sam, very good point on the silver side, the focus on margin and delivers high margins for the business, is that we are also working, go back to this stage approach. We've got the Bunker 1.0, which is getting ourselves into production as of towards the end of next year. But what we're then going to do, just to remind you what I said before, is we're going to use cash flow, levered or otherwise, to unlock a future, to Bunker 2.0. And in there, and we're doing, our engineers working with Sam and others working on this now, as to what would Bunker 2.0 look like? What was the upside potential? Not just delivered through exploration, but delivered through reorganizing, recapitalizing the mine plan in ways that delivers really significant uplifts in returns, but also in the short term indicate an NPV that is way, way bigger than what our starting plan is. So people should watch out for that. Because when you talk about catalysts, this team, and again, I very much defer it to Sam, this team's expertise in this have got a long track record of doing precisely that. Taking hold of something which is valued at X, doing work, as miners always do, with the right support, to make X many multiples of X through excellent engineering and excellent execution. And that's what they're going to be doing.
Sam, anything to add here?
Well, we are hard at work on that, what comes next at Bunker Hill and unlocking the upside potential. And, safe to say that, I see, significant value that we're working on unlocking and bringing to the table.
And just to double back a little bit to the wonderful day that you have today, can you tell a little bit to investors why they should care about this, why it's important for them as well, and what that means for your stock?
Yeah, sure. And we've got Dean just off camera here, who is the boss of the TSX.V and helped us get onto this. Now, what should we expect? Well, we come onto exchanges like this to improve our profile and our standing with the broadest possible investment community. We're very proud of the previous exchange we're on, but we aspire to work alongside our association with some of the best mining companies in the world that are also on this exchange. So the standards that the TSX.V have asked us to meet, which we have met, should demonstrate to retail, institutional, other investors the progress that we've made in terms of governance and in execution. So getting onto the TSX.V is one part of improving our overall cost of capital, lowering the cost of our equity capital over time, but also our standing. It's a badge of improvement, a badge of excellence that we aspire to maintain, and it's a very, very exciting moment for us. So we're very proud to be here.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Richard. I think for myself, and what I would say is that the transitioning to the TSX.V is an example of how the company is maturing. The company is really stepping up its game from a standards and expectations standpoint, and and I think it will represent a significant increase in the visibility to capital markets, which we're very excited about.
I mean, the general capital markets is interesting as a point. It's that I joined the mining industry coincident with the global financial crisis, 2008. And at that moment, as is well known, 50% of capital available to mining vaporized. Since then, there's been a very, very useful correction in mining, known colloquially as the sort of ESG revolution. Well, the ESG revolution isn't new. I mean, Bunker Hill shut in the 1980s, courtesy of new, very, very good laws that were passed to ensure that industry didn't damage the environment. So it's not entirely new, but this is the latest version of it that's coming. And that's actually also taken money out of the industry. People have been very concerned about putting their capital into an industry that has been in the past, dirty and difficult. And some parts of the industry are still dirty and difficult. We're not, and much of the industry isn't. And so what you have now in the capital markets is a situation whereby there is too little money to go around. Mm-hmm. So you have to compete for that money really hard. And one way in which you compete for that money is to get onto an exchange such as this that has a standing and be able to say to those investors, be they very ESG sensitive, be they an impact fund, be they a large institution that will only get involved if certain liquidity in terms of trading volumes are maintained, that we've taken this step, so watch this space. So it's designed for all of those reasons. But what I do hope over time, and there is signs that this is happening, the broader capital markets, equity capital markets primarily, look again at mining and look at the good work that we're a very small company doing, playing our small part in an industry turnaround that excites them. And they come back into mining because without their support, the world's going to find it very hard to deliver its energy transitions. So we're just a little old bunker playing our little role in a very big industry at a very important and critical time. But this TSX.V step is just a small part in that. And we feel ourselves, actually, Sam and I talk about this a lot, we are one part of a big team. The big team is the mining industry and all of its rounds. So we're not sitting here saying we're better than anybody else. We're saying we're just playing our part in that transformation. We look forward to on Beaver Creek next week, talking to a whole bunch of other guys who are doing the same thing and working hard to do what we need to do. So,
No, I would agree with Richard. You know, it's the TSX.V really represents a step forward and a maturing of the company.
Yeah, wonderful. And I think to your point about the support needed for the mining industry, I think people will end up with a lot less of everything, not just the energy transition, but mining supports everything, right? Every industry, everything you have, basically.
that's right. And again, when you're running a business, in any business, you've got to be alert to risk, you've got to be alert to opportunity. And the history of mining is very up and down. And Bunker Hill is an example of what mining has had to do. In the 1890s, when it was discovered and mining started, technology, circumstances, politics were all very different. But it was 1899 when Teddy Roosevelt, as governor, said that one of the greatest threats to the United States is unchecked, unrestricted pursuit of prosperity. What he meant by that is doing what you want and not caring about people and the environment will bring your country down. And it took 70 years or so, huge Republican, another Republican President, Richard Nixon, to bring in the Environmental Protection Act, Clean Air Act, and Clean Water Act. It basically said, here are new standards that you have to meet. And they're good standards, and they're standards that the world followed as well. And so the industry has adjusted to those standards. So when it comes to new requirements being placed on the industry has a long track record of meeting those standards. And I hope that those who aren't enthusiastic about mining have another look in, not just at the bunker story, but what loads of other companies have done and are doing to ensure they meet the new standards, so that unchecked pursuit of prosperity is not what you see. You see the pursuit of commercial excellence, which delivers profit and impact, but done within very strict bounds that ensure our children and the world is not damaged, which is what we're about. And it's a great opportunity sitting here on a day like this to repeat that point, as Sam repeats, as we all repeat to anybody that wants to listen. Mining is a very, very good place for investors to make money if you back teams and assets that have got real business behind them and have got standards that ensure within the bounds of all risk management that they can meet them.
We got a question here. What does it mean to change register/transfer agents? Is it cheaper or more expensive? Why do it? Kendall.
Well, that's a good question, and the simple answer is that as we transition from the CSE to the TSX.V, we needed to change our capital transfer company, because the company that we were using was not able to come across with us to the TSX.V. So that's the simple answer, is that as part of the transition to the TSX.V, we needed to also transition transfer agents.
Wonderful. And do you have anything to add to that?
No, it's a technical thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, as we all know in life, as you move from one place to the other, there has to be adjustments. And it was an adjustment that was made as a result of moving up to this exchange. It's not negative about our previous agency or positive about our current one. It's just a requirement for the rules of the road.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wonderful. Everyone watching, if you want to just drop your questions in the chat. So a question from myself. What's the next catalyst? Like what's coming up in the coming months, if anything, or are you currently just kind of working in that? You want to keep stuff in the...
Well, we're in that interesting if I call it interesting, which is a euphemism, point of the Lassonde curve, where basically the market looking inwards to a project like ours goes, there's a whole bunch of risk, and I'm just going to wait until they've removed all that risk, and then I'm going to buy the stock. Well, I think it was Rick Rule who often says some very smart things that said, if you're waiting for your thesis to be proven by the stock rising, you're entering the market at the wrong point. You either believe in Bunker Hill's ability to generate on time, on budget, a commercially sustainable business in Q4 next year, or you don't. If you do, and you believe in the team and you believe in the asset, this is a very, very good time to invest. But to answer your question, how are people who are observing saying how we're doing? Well, we're going to be giving regular updates. Sam can talk about this, about how the project's marching. And that would be great. That's Bunker Hill 1.0. Are we delivering on it? And are we properly valued for Bunker Hill 1.0? But the really interesting catalyst you should watch out for is we will be issuing, when we have finalized it and when we've reviewed it and so on, a site of our Bunker Hill 2.0 plan. That thing I said before about we're valued at X, what could Bunker Hill be if we execute on Bunker Hill 2.0? How long will it take? So shareholders now and future shareholders, and hopefully people buying our stock today, will sit there and go, I'm actually quite interested in this team delivering Bunker Hill 1.0, and I can see this value. But I'm really curious about everything that Sam said about unlocking deeper silver, improved margins, increased throughput, about Bunker Hill 2.0. What does that look like? And that isn't delivered just from exploration. That's delivered from exploration, partnership, and innovation, as with all mining companies in terms of value creation. So I'd say watch out for what we're going to be telling the market about what Bunker Hill 2.0 looks like. What do you think, Sam?
Absolutely. You're absolutely right as well, Richard, that, we're going to be reporting and keeping everybody up to date on a very regular basis about how the project is advancing. But really, when you look at catalysts, we're very focused on articulating and creating a pathway towards that upside value potential of Bunker Hill and unlocking that value.
We got another question here. This is a little bit of a curveball. So, what are your thoughts on the silver market and price of silver right now?
Sam, you kick off on that one. I'll come back.
No, I think that silver sits in a very interesting nexus between the industrial use and its functionality as a precious metal, and and you can make the argument that silver performs well in a challenging economic environment because of its precious component, and more so performs well in a kind of a base metal industrial use case, particularly in light of low carbon energy transition and its utility in the solar industry in particular. So there's a lot of questions that are out there that are unanswered in the world right now about economically. We're in some turbulent times economically, and I think that what we're seeing in silver is some relative strength in the silver price. Because when you look at silver and you say, where is the silver price going to go? A robust economy transitioning to a low carbon energy solution is going to see significant silver demand. But if you have a contrarian view where the economic growth is going to be slow, there's going to be challenges, we're going to be in an inflationary environment, you can just as easily make the thesis that silver price will be robust as a hedge against inflation. So when I look at the silver price right now, I think that it's robust. I think that it's trading in a range that suits the economic climate. And in either thesis, either a robust economy transitioning to a low carbon energy future, or an inflationary environment with economic challenges. Either one of those, I think, are a positive for the price of silver.
In terms of just some comparable companies that investors can look at to find value in Bunker Hill, what are some of your peer companies that perhaps could be?
Yeah, interesting question. Look, one of the things that bedevils investors when investing in a development company, because we're a buy, build, operate company, is the amount of projects that don't come in on time and on budget. And they catch a lot of attention. There's a fair amount of them. We obviously aim to come in on time and on budget and be not one of those. But there are companies out there that have delivered very effectively the restart of their operations on time and on budget. And so for investors out there that are having a look at, say, an industry track record, I would just say be as balanced as you can. For as many operations that find it hard to get into production, there are also many that do on time, on budget, and deliver for their shareholders precisely what they've got to do. That's just a general point, I would say. Second point I'd make is with respect to the metal and the metal mix that we've got. People look at us in the Silver Valley as having a lot of silver potential, and they're right to look at us that way. Some of our investors came into our stock as a result of their wish to get exposure long-term to silver. But in the short term, the majority of our money is going to be made to the zinc concentrate that we're going to be selling into Trail Smelter and on that way. And so I'd say that if you're sitting and having a look at how companies are going to be performing, look at us at our stage, but also look at our metal mix. And then I'd then also say, when you're looking for comparisons, look at where we sit in the world. Because my father was born on a gold mine in Zimbabwe. Sam and I both spent a lot of our professional lives in the developing parts of the world, so-called my home, Africa, and elsewhere. And the turbulence that happens there, unfortunate it is, does actually keep revisiting itself upon companies and mining who go there. So we made a deliberate decision to start our company in what would be generically called a safe tier 1 jurisdiction. Now, whenever you say something safe, something else happens. But the way in which the market looks at it, we look at it that way. So I'd say if you're looking at comparing us to others, look at people who are going into production in North America that have our particular metal mix and with our aspired margins and team, and you'll find there's not many of them. And I challenge those sitting and watching this now is to say, how many new mines are going to be coming into production in this particular mix of essential base metals and precious in North America over the next 5 years? And you'll find there's very, very few. So I haven't answered your question directly, but I'd pose to people watching this to say, just look at us and compare us to others out there, and you might find that there is a degree of uniqueness to what we do, which should be very appealing to investors. That's not being over promotional, that's just being analytical. And I hope that's a useful answer. But Sam?
Yeah, and I think there was one more component to that I would add, Richard, and I think it's the approach that we're taking. When I look out in the mining space, I think that we have a really quite a unique approach, and that is to focus on an asset that has enormous potential, but take a strategy, a deliberate strategy, to start with a manageable size project that can be brought from a capital perspective into production and free cash flowing very efficiently, and then use that as a base to unlock the larger value potential. I think that is quite a unique approach that differentiates us as well.
Yeah, wonderful. I think we've got time for, I guess we have two questions actually here. So when do you expect commercial production will begin? Which quarter?
Very simple answer. We are on track for commercial production in Q4 of 2024.
Perfect. All right. And Paul Rankin asks, what is the cash burn rate per month right now?
Okay, so the on the cash burn rate, obviously, when you look at any project that's going through its execution and development phase, it really depends on where you're at in any particular month. You look on average across the whole plan, you're anywhere from $1 million to, in some of the larger months, $3 or $4 million. It really depends on what financial commitments are you making and what activity is actually happening at the mine site at that particular time. So when you think about what is our burn rate, and you're talking about, you just need to think about it in the context of the activity that is actively going on inside. What I can say is that we're right where we want to be. We know what that cash profile is expected to be, and we're performing well against those expectations. But in any particular month, the burn rate will be higher or lower depending on what the project schedule and project plan demands.
Can I just answer one thing on this in terms of systems, administration, and control, which is something that is very important to me in terms of key to success, whether one was previously working with Sam at Barrick or elsewhere. Our board and our management team review detailed project progress by video conference every week. So we're not a board that is sitting distant from what's happening, waiting for a monthly report or a quarterly report. Just as when we were at Barrick, we instigated a system whereby every week we're able to observe progress, opportunities, risks, and how individuals are doing. We visit the site regularly. We're going to be down there just after Beaver Creek when the Idaho State Governor comes down, and our closeness to what Sam sees is absolute. In that there's no gap between what is happening on the ground and what we as a board are seeing, and that allows shareholders, I hope, to feel very reassured about the way in which the company is being run. And all we're doing is taking best practice that we've observed elsewhere and applying it to our project in ways that we think gives the best chance of success.
All right, wonderful. And before I pass it back to you two for any closing remarks, we have someone that says, enjoying watching the interviews very much as a shareholder based in Southern England. Go Bunker. So I'll pass it back to you two for any closing remarks.
Well, no, thank you. And again, thank you, Six, for supporting us on this important day. And I'd say to all those shareholders, potential shareholders, stakeholders, teammates, and supporters that have helped us get here, we don't take that support for granted. We're going to continue to work as a team, as individuals, exceedingly hard to deliver on what you believe is possible and what we also believe is possible. So thank you very much for helping us to put this message out, and thank you very much for everybody's support.
Yeah, thank you for everyone's support, and it's always a pleasure to have these events and talk about where we're at and how the project's moving forward, and certainly looking forward to having a lot of these conversations going forward.